Hola. 30 days of mourning, July 22nd, 2022. But this is really going to be story time about July 21st, 2022, with an experience I had last night. Yeah, it was fun. But we'll set this all up. So last night, my sister is coming to visit me here in Vermont in 4 days. The first time her and her husband, just the two of them, have come to visit me. They took vacation, I took vacation, my girlfriend Amanda took vacation, and I'm just gonna chill with my, my sis. In widowhood, I use some of these experiences as opportunities to get something done, to go through something, to be productive in some way, whether it's emotionally, physically, just life, whatever. This time I'm using it as an opportunity to clean my house. I want my house to be nice and clean for my sister and her husband. And I'm sure it's part of it is like a pride thing, in me. So it started off last night with, taking all the books off the shelves. I actually got a box and I was like, I can get rid of this amount, give them away. But can clean all the shelves, and I can dust everything up here and blah. I didn't realize, going through all the books, you find, I have a little stack over here of things you just find in the books, and little notes that Kateri wrote, or people wrote to Kateri, or Kateri wrote to me. It took a lot longer than I expected. So I didn't get to much other cleaning. But it's hot here in Vermont, right now. It's like 80s, 90s, humid. So I'm upstairs, just sweating, kind of sticky. I worked, so it kind of feels gross. So I'm like, okay, I keep a pretty clean house anyway. I'm glad I got that done. I think it looks nice. I need to take a shower. This is where story time kind of really starts. So I'm feeling gross. I'm gonna take a shower, do my things. Xander's actually up here right now. He was actually downstairs last night. I'm like, walking into the bathroom, and right there is a snake. It's like all coiled up around the baseboard heater pipe thing. I'm using this little tripod. I don't know why. So I'm going to sit down for a second. So I walk in and there's this snake. So I guess backstory to that, when Kateri and I bought the house, we knew there were snakes that live around here because we found snake skins in the bulkhead. When I actually redid the bathroom, Kateri was still alive when I took the ceiling off, and I found snake skins up there. I'm on the second floor, and I found snake skins up there. That's fucked up. But last night, walk in, snake. Freak out for a minute. I'm like, what the fuck? What the fuck? I knew it came out of that hole, so I thought, okay, if I can just get it back into that hole. A couple of things I did know. I knew it was a milk snake because when we first bought the house, our friend Matt came and helped us stack wood, and while we're out stacking wood, he looked down and there's this little snake striking his ankle, a little tiny guy. We were trying to figure out what it was. Him and Kateri had just heard a thing on the radio about the timber rattlers and stuff, and they're like, oh, maybe it's a timber rattler, which hopefully it wasn't because they're deadly. But Matt went home that night, looked it up, and we figured out it was a milk snake. A milk snake is harmless. They don't have fangs. They don't. The worst that's going to happen to you is if they bite you, you're going to get a scratch. That being said, and me knowing all of this did not change the level of my freak out at all. So, I'm sitting there, I walk in, it's there, I know it's not just gonna come at me, but I sat there and was like, what do I do? And then I thought, I'm gonna get to higher ground. So I'm standing here and I'm like, okay, what do I do? And I'm like, well, I just need to get it back in that hole. So I sit there and I grab this thing. So this, Kateri, I think this is Kateri's. It's still in the plastic and everything. I don't use it, but it provided me very useful last night. So I'm up here and I'm like, oh, I can sit there and just kind of poke it in. And I'm like standing across, I'm stepping on the toilet, and I'm just like reaching down here, trying to poke at it. And it's not really doing too much. Obviously, I'm not making it happy, I guess. But then it goes across the wall, like against the wall, and into my little hole I have where the water supply to the toilet comes out of the wall. And so it's open, and it goes right in there. And there's no way for it to get anywhere else from in there. I thought it could go down the pipe hole, but I think that one might be too small. This hole is because of me when I redid the bathroom, and I never really filled it all back in. There's duct tape on it now. And there's going to be a ton of spray foam here by this evening, or tonight. So the snake's in there, and I'm sitting there trying to figure out, okay, how can I get it out of there, or get it, I was thinking maybe it could go down the pipe hole thing. So I'm sitting there poking at it this way, and then I realize it's not going to do anything. It's hanging out there. So I have to take a shower. So I take a shower. I'm in the shower, and I'm just like waiting for a little snake head to like peek its little head around my shower curtain. And multiple times I looked out the shower curtain and looked down into that little hole to make sure I could still see it. And I couldn't. So I'm like, okay, my hope is that it will just come out of this little hole, oh gosh, come out of that little hole and then just kind of go back down that hole. Then back into the ceiling, floor, whatever, and call it good. So, get out of the shower, dry off, go out, put my PJs on, and I'm like, well, I don't want it to come out into the hallway, into my bedroom, into any of the spare bedrooms, any of that shit. So I shut the door and put duct tape across the bottom so that it can't get out, because there's a gap underneath the door. So I'm like, it's in there. I guess we'll just, hopefully it'll go down the hole. This is now 10:30 at night, and I'm like, I need to eat. So Amanda and I had made pizzas over the weekend, and so I pull one out, throw it in, heat it up, sit on the couch, sitting there eating it, watching the news. I think it was probably like the January 6th hearings and shit. And I feel like I hear this noise from upstairs. I'm like, whatever. Keep watching, whatever. Keep eating. Finish eating. Gives Andrew a couple of the ends. And heard that noise again. And I'm like, okay, maybe that's the snake or whatever. And then I'm sitting there going, I hope the snake didn't bust through the duct tape and get out. So I come upstairs and I'm looking at the duct tape, and on the right corner you can tell there's something, pushing against it. So I'm like, fuck, the snake is against it. And then I'm like, oh, it's against the sticky side. So the snake is now stuck to the duct tape. And so I'm like on the outside, going from the opposite corner, like peeling the duct tape back until I get to the part where it's stuck to the snake. And so I'm like barely. I don't want to hurt the snake, really. Even though it moves without legs, and that's just not right or natural. So I'm like pulling the duct tape off, and I can see actually fucking scales coming off, and I can see it like pulling. It's trying to pull away. I'm trying to pull that. I'm trying to get the right angle, and then finally it's free. And I'm like, okay, it's free. It's just gonna go down the hole. No, it didn't. What it did was, I don't know if I can do this. Okay, it crawled or slithered there all the way across, into that corner. Now I'm like, the baseboard heat goes across this wall and through the wall that way into my room. I'm like, hell's no. So, I noticed it wasn't like really trying to get in there, so I'm like, okay, whatever. So, once again, I grab this guy. So now I'm sitting here back here, trying to get this guy like this way, trying to push him back, over down into the hole on this side. It got like pretty much to under the sink, and then it kind of came like this way, across the floor and into the back corner there. And I'm like sitting here like this, like once it started doing that, I like jumped way the fuck over here, and then it was like kind of in the corner, and so I was up here, and I'm like, what the fuck? I noticed, I could come down, and then I have a little wash basin down here, then I sit there like trying to scare it back to its little hole, blah, blah, blah. I realized it's now in this back corner. There's nowhere for it to go. I'm also sitting there going, am I going to have to pick up the snake? This is where I am going to bring in props. To have you have the full effect. Remind you, it's like 80 fucking degrees. I'm already sweating because I have like freaking adrenaline. I have like, the devil's spawn slithering across my floor, and I don't want it to latch onto me. So I'm like, oh, I have my gloves for the, wood stove and everything. Actually, I just realized like I have props, but I'm like, I was wearing muck boots also. But, so I'm like, headlamp. Oh my God. Headlamp. I love my headlamp. I actually don't leave home without it. After I thought about the gloves, I sat there and thought, well, what about my arms and shit? So I'm like, oh, Carhartt coat. So I'm like, okay, Carhartt coat, headlamp, I got my gloves. So I'm like, I am ready. Oh, gloves. So I have this guy. I also brought a bag. What the fuck am I gonna? I don't want to like carry the snake like out out through my house. What if I drop it or something? I'm like, grab it, throw it in the bag, take it outside. So here I am last night with this snake in the corner, and I'm like trying to get it. I could get it out a little bit, so then I was like, oh, maybe I can get it into the bag or whatever. It came slithering out. I kind of jumped back a little bit, and this is where I was like, bag, throw that down. I can grab this by the tail. Because it came slithering out, and then it started going down my window. Because I have an old schoolhouse, so this window actually goes from the bottom floor up to the second floor, and this is the top of the window. It starts crawling down. crawling. It's not crawling. It's fucking slithering. It's like slithering down there, and I'm like, oh, I can grab it. The tail's like right here, and I go to grab, it falls. I'm like, what the fuck? Right down here is my mudroom. So I'm like, oh shit, I need to run down there. Plus Xander's down there at this point. So I'm like running. Well, Xander's right there right now. Isn't he cute? So I'm like running downstairs. I'm like, oh my God, I gotta get down to the fucking mudroom, make sure it didn't figure out where it went. And I'm like, holy shit, okay, where? And I saw it was like right back down in there. And I'm like, oh, okay, I know where it is. I can do this. So, I'm sitting here, again, trying to figure out how to get the snake from back there out of the house. I had a broom. I had tongs. Then I had longer tongs. So I sat there and I'm like moving boots and stuff out of the way, thinking maybe it'll just go down the hole for the baseboard heat there. No, it doesn't do that shit either. It sits there and like is in that corner, and at this point like it's like striking, you know, it's like, which for snakes that don't have like fangs and stuff, the fact that you can hear them and they're like, it's like, that's fucked up. So, snake's there, and I'm like, okay, I need to figure out something. Really, I'm pretty much just poking it, I think, at this point. But it goes up the pipe, and then on this one, it crawls across the top of those baseboard heating foil things. And then it's now in that corner. And I'm like, what the fuck? I open the door, the front door, so it's wide open. Mind you, this is nighttime, so the light's on, there's bugs, and I'm like, fuck it, bugs can come in the house as long as, you know, the snake gets out of the house. So the snake is there, and I'm sitting there actually with my barbecue tongs, and I'm like trying to, every time it strikes, I'm like trying to grab it by the neck, because I also don't want to grab it too far behind, because then I'm like, well, then it's just like, oh, and I'm like, fuck that. Is all coiled up in that end of the thing. And so I have these, and I'm like going in there, trying to like push it out. And finally it kind of starts to come out a little bit, and I think it notices that, you know, freedom. And the moment he starts like turning that corner, I'm like, yes, just keep slithering that way. And he slithered like right here, but then I noticed he was gonna kind of keep going, and I'm like, fuck that. So I actually had this door open, and like that, I actually had the door open, and I, right when he got like right here, I was just like, boop, right outside, out to here. He kind of might have bounced off of that. Sorry, snake. And then he kind of just went, and I followed him, all the way down here, right there, hucked him that way. Holy shit, this stuff is hot. My biggest thing was I wanted him out of the house. Once he hit the grass, he kind of went to the deck and just went right under the deck. Now, I 100% know that it's probably right back in my house right now. But I've been here 7 years now. First one I've seen in the house, and with Kateri and I definitely knowing there's been snakes. I came out last summer, I think it was last summer, and that's when I saw the 3 snake skins right in my front door. you know, good long snake skins. So I knew it was just a matter of time. I will tell you what, the moment that that snake hit that grass, even though it crawled under my deck, it felt fantastic. It was such a relief that it was at least out of the house, you know? Because for a while there, I had no idea how I was going to sleep last night. It was crazy. It was a weird experience to go through by myself. But I'm also glad I went through it by myself. Part of me is glad no one else saw me, how I reacted to everything. But you know, I dug it. I was freaked out by it. And it still gives me the heebie-jeebies and the willies and stuff, but I loved that moment of, I need to take care of this. And I could still like relax a little bit. I'm like, it's a fucking milk snake. It's not gonna do anything. I really don't want it crawling into my bed or in my bedroom or really in my house at all to begin with, but whatever. I didn't want to have to deal with it, but I did. Thinking about it is like, that's what we do in life. I don't want to have to deal with Kateri dying and the repercussions of not only her dying, but the effects it has on everyone that she touched, and in me, my life. But I have to deal with that. It's not comfortable, you know. Sometimes it's just flailing. And sometimes you want to cry, but you deal with it. Yeah, so that's what I did last night. I got to deal with the Mutual of Omaha's Wild Kingdom in the 1921 Wild Hill Schoolhouse. It was fun. And I'm glad I have that story, you know? So, I hope you guys make the most of whatever. And you'll get through it. And I hope you have a good night. Bye.